Hi there, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace, and this is the build video for the J&H Aerospace Skeletor. This is a 28-inch span speed plane hotliner pylon racer. Kind of fits the niche there. Is predominantly for all-out speed though, rather than pylon racing. This airplane is designed for just top-end performance rather than efficiency. Things you'll need to know about this airplane. This airplane is all wood except for the carbon fiber spars, so no molding, no dealing with foam, etc. It is a wooden airplane. It is intended to fit an outrunner motor. This is a Brother Hobby 3115. This is kind of the motor that I designed the airplane around because it's a low-cost option. There are others out there. This is a fairly small X-class quad motor. There are other options available. If you want to spend money, you could get like a Scorpion Outrunner that's about the same size. Lots of options in that area. The wings are film covered, so the kit includes Doculam for the covering. There are lots of other options out there, Monocoat being one of them. Ultracoat is, since Monocoat is no longer available. Lots of options in that regard. The airplane features an open bay wing structure. It doesn't show up on camera here, but the open bay wing structure allows you to put lights in, so you can do night flying with this airplane should you choose. There is sufficient space inside the battery compartment, which runs from here to right here, for a 6S2500, potentially even more than that. Design power plant with this motor and an APC 7x10 prop would be two 4S batteries to give you an 8S 1800, preferably. With good high discharge batteries, you can run much smaller, but like an 8S 13 or 1400, something in that range. It gets a little tight in there, but you can do that. Very important though, as you're doing that, you need to be running a separate battery eliminator circuit and separate power system for that BEC. So you don't want to run your main drive battery as also power supply for your electronics, because in the event of a LiPo failure, which is common with speed planes of any kind, be it pylon racers, high-end speed planes, hotliners, you want to have that separate battery driving your electronics, because fast airplane, out of control, bad things happen, and I have seen it, I've experienced it, I've seen a lot of other people have main drive battery failures, lose all control of the power system on the aircraft, but as long as you've got a separate battery driving the electronics, you're fine. The airplane has plenty of energy to get back around and make a safe landing. Speaking of electronics, you can use pretty much any 9 to 12 gram servo to drive your elevator. It needs to be small enough to fit pretty far back here so that your elevator linkage is as short as possible. For your ailerons, you'll need something a little more specialized, and that's because this is a very thin wing section. This is an HD 45 wing section, which is designed for pylon racers, and it requires you to use a servo that is 8 millimeters thick maximum. There are very few servos that are of sufficient torque that are thinner than 8 millimeters, so that kind of narrows your options. Corona has a 9 gram Metal Gear servo that fits that description. Bluebird, not Bluebird, Blue Arrow, the BA8-1 servo, the metal case one. Don't get the plastic case one. You have to get the metal case Metal Gear servo. That will work very well. Other options, KST X08s, MKS DS65s, and similar. I mean, those are more expensive. On the other hand, if you want to go fast, get good servos. I have the KS servos. They're kind of a Hobby King type knockoff. I have those in here, and they're a 9 gram servo, a little larger footprint, but they're 8 millimeters thick. They fit fine in here, and I've had no problems out of them whatsoever. Very good centering, very consistent, etc. You'll want a 100 amp or larger speed controller because you're going to be drawing some pretty serious amps. Admittedly, on 6S, this setup is drawing probably about 60 amps, so you can plan accordingly there. But if you run the full-on 8S setup, or run a high kV motor or something like that, you're going to need a substantial speed controller, and there's plenty of room up front for that. You'll want a 4-channel radio with mixing and whatnot, because ideally you'll want to be able to mix spoilerons in here. I will say I've flown the airplane without really using spoilerons for landing, and I've gotten away with it, so fairly easy there. I do like to mix a little bit of up trim in my elevator. Just gives you easier launches. This airplane does launch very easily, but with that extra up trim to separate your launch trim from your cruising trim, you just get a better launch, and then you can set it up completely 0-0 for cruising, so the airplane doesn't pitch up and down while you're flying at high speeds. What else do I need to cover before we get into the build? Fiberglass your fuselage. Fiberglass is included in the kit. You should use it. It will help this airplane keep from breaking apart, and in high power loadings you run the risk, if you don't fiberglass it, of the front of the airplane coming apart. I have had that happen, so be aware it does happen. There's a lot of thrust that you're putting out of this motor. This is a 200 mile per hour capable airplane, so it's drawing a tremendous amount of power and applying huge gyroscopic and torsion and bending loads onto the front of this airframe, so you need to take that into account. You need to fiberglass the airplane, and we supply the materials so that you can do that. So with all of that covered, let's go ahead and get started with the build for the J&H Aerospace Skeletor. We're going to break the build for this airplane into several segments. So what we'll do right now is we'll go over the wooden parts that are in the kit, and then we will get started with the first segment of the build. So what you should have in terms of wooden parts only, you should have the leading edge piece. This is made from 1/4 inch balsa. You will have to do some shaping on this part. This 3/16 inch bit here is the center line rib and its doublers. You'll have some 1/16 inch plywood parts here for hard points within the aircraft. A sheet of 1/8, which is your tail surfaces. A sheet of 1/16 balsa. I'll turn it this way so you can see it upright. These are the rib supports for your wing build. You will also have this set of leading edge and trailing edge supports. And this is also 1/16 balsa. This next 1/16 balsa sheet, you should have 2 of these, and these contain your ribs, shear webs, wingtips, and also the center line rib support. You'll notice that's kind of duplicated. Some 1/8 inch balsa for your fuselage. This is your top and bottom decking for the rear fuselage and one of your center section sides. And then this is the sides. These are the sides for the rear fuselage. And then this next sheet, these 3 of course for your fuselage are all 1/8 balsa. The next one is your nose section plus one of your side plates for the center section and the bottom deck for the center section. You're going to have 2 wing skins. The one with all the engraving in it is the bottom skin for your wing, and then the one without is your top skin. Okay, let's talk about the hardware included in your kit. There's not a whole lot that's necessary because mechanically the airplane is fairly simple. So you'll have 2 carbon fiber spars. One is a short one and one is a large one, and these are 3/16 inch diameter. They are hollow carbon tubes. You're going to have a 440 blind nut bolt washer group here. Then you'll have a push rod for your elevator. This is the longer one. You shouldn't need all the length of this. It's cut over length. There's an 0.47 inch diameter push rod. And then you'll have 0.39 inch push rods for your ailerons. So check those, make sure they're correct diameters. And then the one remaining item in your hardware pack is fiberglass cloth. Should be about 2 ounce glass cloth It's included, and that's enough to glass over your fuselage. You won't need to glass over anything else, just the fuselage. And I said last item, last item is a roll of blender tape, and that's for your elevator hinge. And it won't be a full roll like this because you're not going to need this much. This is like enough to do 20 of these airplanes, or 30, something like that, because it's just for that. You're not going to use this for your ailerons. In addition to your hardware pack, you will have a roll of Doculam for your covering. You can paint this to the desired color. We're supplying this rather than a traditional self-adhesive film because those of you that are going to go with a self-adhesive film, you're going to color the airplane whatever way you want to. This is something you can paint. It's also compatible with the lights and whatnot. Just gives a very nice result. So this is one of your available options. And then those of you that want to cover with monocoat or whatever, or ultra coat, I guess is the new thing that's available since monocoat has gone defunct, or at least appears to have. Those of you that have that, y'all can hash it out for those colors. You will need a special building board, which we'll show later, for the wing. We're going to start with the fuselage because the fuselage is fairly easy and straightforward, and all of that good stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop open parts for the front section of the fuselage. You do this in several different orders. This just happens to be the one that I'm going to show. We'll go ahead and get this guy out as well. Now some of these you're going to need to sand your laser tabs off, some you are not. This piece is for your bottom center deck. I always kind of like to start in the middle, but it's up to you. And all that you're going to do here is glue these sides on. Now, what's important is there is a little curvature right here. This is the front. There's a little notch in it, notch here as well, in addition to your other notches. The importance of this is this allows the front former to key in here. And it's very important that you have that aligned correctly because that front former is a high stress location in the airplane and it is specially keyed for that. Now what we're going to do is mount this guy flush in here. Come on, there we go. You want it as straight up and down as you can get it. The fuselage former, however, will take care of a lot of that. Next, find the other fuselage side plate for your center section. And again, we're aligning these notches here. The sharply curved part goes forward. Go ahead at this point and pop out these fuselage formers that have a little hole in them. That little hole, I mean this hole right here, not the big opening, because all your fuselage formers have those. There are only 3 fuselage formers. These are set up cross-grained. You want that. And now what you're going to do is glue these together. You want them aligned very carefully because you want this to line up with precision. Sand the laser tabs off of this guy. This former mounts into the front of the center box of your fuselage. Just like that. Little hole goes up at the top. It really only goes in one way, so you're not gonna get it wrong. I do recommend sanding a bevel along here. Apologies, that sounds horrible. And that bevel gives you proper curvature for your to mate with your wing. So your nose section has these side plates, which are top and bottom sensitive because of the notches back here. So they're going to fit together like this. But what we want to start with is to assemble them from the front going back. Now, depending on your installation, you may want to have this section right here be open. I am going to do that. This is your fuselage vent, and this allows you access to the motor. Now, one other option is to deflect it down like this, and then you'll want to sand out from underneath so that you can get a nice smooth inlet, because you do need this for cooling. Since you're going to run a fairly large ESC, at least some of you are, you want plenty of cooling going in. And one option you do have is that you can cut this out and then mount it back in there later. Go ahead and sand any burrs off of here. These on the outer sections don't really matter. It's just these sections where things are going to mate together that are really important. And what we're going to do is remember where your top and bottom is. This is your top, so it goes up. So the part that doesn't have a notch goes towards the bottom. This is a curved mounting surface right here, so get it to get along as well as possible. Notice I'm only gluing this one tabbed area together here. just work our way around doing that. So we're going to do the same thing over on this side. Again, the part without a tab towards the bottom. Now we're going to start closing up these back areas. Apologies for the screaming toddler in the background. I don't know what he's mad about, but he is mad about something. And there we go. So now all we have to do is bring in this bottom section for a fuselage. I'm going to do the same procedure on it. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and glue my firewall in. You can choose to wait on that. One thing I will mention is we have both these style firewalls and the blank ones. You can choose the blank ones if you have a motor that does not fit these dimensions, so check all of that beforehand. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop these firewall pieces together. So this will give us a very nice cross-grained 1/8 ply firewall. I know some of you are saying, yeah, but plywood is already cross-grained. There does tend to be a dominant direction, though, because this is 3-layer plywood, which means 2 of the layers are going the same direction, 1 is going the middle one is going the other, so it does end up dominating the outer direction. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this guy in, do my little access port hole facing up, like that. No particular need to have it in a given direction, but that's what I'm choosing to do for now. I do recommend filling in CA anywhere you see gaps here. We are going to glass this over, so it only matters so much, but go ahead and get it right from the start. And there we go. Now, at this point, the front of the fuselage locks into the center section. Some of you may prefer to use thin CA for this task. It's not a bad idea. One thing is we want that glue to all soak in there. Get a good join. Particularly across the top, you will probably end up wanting to wrap some glass across that just to further shore it up. But there you go. We can now begin attaching or assembling the rear section of the fuselage. I'm going to leave this top deck for the rear fuselage alone for the time being. And that's because we're going to assemble most of it, and then we'll install the elevator servo, then we'll come back and put that part in. And we can go ahead and break out our remaining fuselage former, maybe. Take the burrs off of that. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the front on this one, and we're going to work our way back. then let's drop on this fuselage former. And there is a top and bottom to this. It has the keying on the bottom. It fits in just like that. And try not to glue yourself to the fuselage, which leaves scarring on the fuselage, which you will later have to, sand away. Now we will go ahead and attach the other side. You may want to go so far as to fill it in this former. And there you go. Now let's go ahead and close up these fuselage sides. Okay, now we can go ahead and close up this attachment, just like so. Now, it is important that you not get glue on this first nut right here, only get it down here because there's going to be decking that goes over that. One way to ensure that is to just do it on the back, is to put your glue on the back section. And now our basic fuselage structure is there, taking shape, looking nice and awesome. And there we go. You may want to go back in and fill any gaps that you see. This time, let's go ahead and do a test fit of our rear decking here. So we want to go ahead and deburr things. So we know that this section of our fuselage is going to fit in like so. Everything is looking good there. And then go ahead and pop these these two segments out that have holes in them, the kind of triangle starburst holes, because those are going to be for your blind nut. And together they will fit there, and that will give you the complete kind of assembly of the fuselage. We're not going to glue either of these together yet because we need to lay out our elevator servo inside the fuselage. At this time we're going to install our elevator servo, and there are several different approaches to this, but the main thing is you need to go ahead and get this guy centered up and verifying that everything is happy there, and then we'll talk about proper ways to install it so that you maximize your resolution on your elevator. At high speeds, that's going to be particularly important. I'm going to choose the single arm here. And I want to pick a way of orienting it. Puts this directly at 90 degrees. At this point you have so much glue on your hands that feeling things is a little hard. Ideally use a little bit higher quality servo than what I've got. I'm only using this because it's the only thing I have on hand. And I'm going to choose an arm that's fairly far in here, because I want fairly shallow elevator travel. Actually, I'm going to shoot this. Maybe I'm not. I'm going to go get a drill bit because we want to drill this out to fit this beefy control horn. Second hole out, I should say. And now what we're going to want to do is trim off the excess from that control horn. Any excess hanging out there. Everybody's happy. So this guy is going to get glued in here, and where you position your control horn is going to be based on clearance below this top decking. Turn this around so you can see it. So you want to make sure your top decking is not going to get in a fight with any of that. One other thing I'm already seeing here is that the control horn is, or push rod, sorry, is a bit too steep of an angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up to where it angles back down. There we go. Our goal is to have this distance be as short as possible, so the elevator is servo as far back in the fuselage as we can get it. And you can at this point sight along here and see that it's the push rod itself is going to get in a bit of an argument. Maybe not. Maybe right about there. And so at this point you want to mark that location. And there you go. If you have a smaller, lower profile servo, you can get it fit further back. But for now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to mount this guy. And the way that I'm going to do it Ideally, wrap your servo with shrink wrap, and then you can directly glue it that way. This method is a little riskier because you can get glue into the servo. That's why I use CA Accelerator to get things as closely, get the bond to establish as early as possible, and that minimizes my concerns there. And then just checking movement here, everything looks good, so the servo is secure. We'll center it up and power down that assembly. At this point, let's go ahead and glue in this top decking along here. Actually, I'm going to suggest we install this section first. After I locate my blind nut, there it is. We're going to need that. So let's go ahead and we're going to thoroughly glue these two pieces of decking together. Blind nut should fit neatly in there. It does. Before we go too far with that, let's go ahead and get it back out and let's glue it in. Go ahead at this point, we're going to mount this guy in. Blind nut, of course, goes on the bottom, so it can't pull through. One thing I'm going to draw your attention to is this area. If you have not recognized, this is going to have to be glassed heavily because that is a along the grain join and it doesn't have a whole lot of strength. Now we can install this top deck. Try to keep your servo wire clear of glue. And there we go. All of the decking is now finally installed. At this point, you're going to want to start sanding the airplane. Do not do a whole lot of sanding here. I mean, you can do finish sanding, but don't round anything off. All of this area back here can be rounded off. I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll come back. Alright, let's pop the horizontal tail out here. Now this sheet normally would have had your nose, part of your nose assembly on it as well. This is an early prototype kit, so things are arranged slightly differently. So we'll start with the horizontal tail. So the tips are going to fit in like so. Put glue up here ahead of the elevator, but don't get any glue on the elevator. And yes, that means that there's now no gap here. You can adjust that later. Now you'll want to use a razor plane to work on carving this to an airfoil shape. So this is a Stanley mini plane that I'm using here. Ideally, you want to use something that's a little higher quality. This is a block plane that is made by Bruce Kimball. If you contact me directly, I can give you his contact information. You can purchase one from him. As you see, that does make the job a little bit easier. Now what we want to do is we want to plane this trailing edge down till it's about a 32nd of an inch thick. You don't want to go any thinner than that, because then the wood becomes a little bit unstable. And if that sounds a little too thick, go look at a Great Plains rifle and you'll feel a little better. And that's not meant to throw shade on that airplane. It is in fact a very good quality product. My point is, they are capable of 200 miles an hour. Harder to fly at that weight than this will be in such configuration. And their trailing edges are a lot thicker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this fairly thick here. I'm not going to take my taper very far forward, because I want some pretty good amount of beef on my elevator to keep it from tending to flutter at speed. Or worse, go aeroelastic at speed. And there we go. Don't know how well that shows up, but that's where you want to be. Next, do the same thing up front and all the way around to your tips. You may want to actually draw a mark right around here. You can always sand it off later. Don't sand this too much or plane it too much, because you're going to be mating that up to the front of the fuselage, or to the back of the fuselage, sorry. And we can start thinning out the tips a little bit. A little bit of rounding down on the bottom. That's about all you need. And there you go. Now you can sand it to shape. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and sand this out. I'm going to do this off camera as it's just sanding. Nothing special here. At this time, we're going to go ahead and pop the vertical stab out. And all we're going to do is repeat the same process on this, airfoil it on both sides. You can go fairly thin on the trailing edge here because the way the grain intersects in prevents flutters. This can be sanded fairly thin. Don't go overboard with it. But round off the leading edge and then taper the trailing edge to about a 64th of an inch thick. I wouldn't go any thinner than that, or you run the risk of damaging it. You may choose even to round off the edges. Same with the corner here. Same with the horizontal stab. That's up to you. Okay, at this point, I just have the tail surfaces just lightly installed. They're not glued in. Just for reference. But at this point, what you're going to need to do is do some finishing work on this fuselage before you proceed any further with it. So that means on the tail surfaces, varnish them with Minwax spar varnish. That's my preferred sealant. Don't use anything like butyrate dope or nitrate dope or whatever. I find that that's just not water resistant enough, and sooner or later you're going to fly the plane in wet conditions, and you'll find that allows your flying surfaces to warp. So use something like Minwax. It'll be resistive to environmental changes. Same with the elevator and horizontal stab. After you have done that, go ahead and paint these. After they are varnished and painted, then we can look at hinging the elevator. The next thing you're going to do after that is you're going to want to glass this fuselage. If you're not planning to fly crazy super fast, you can get away with just varnishing it and painting it. But if you're going to put anything over probably about 800 watts, you need to go ahead and glass this fuselage. There is a video that I'll link down below for how to do that with the Evo Fire. It's the same procedure. I'm not going to show it here. That's one method that you can use. If you are comfortable with glassing, use your preferred method. If you're not, the method I used is one option. You can use epoxy finishing resin, water-based polyurethane, etc. If you're planning to go really fast, though, at least for this section, this forward section, I recommend going ahead and epoxying the fiberglass. And it doesn't take a lot of epoxy, but you do need to epoxy it. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.